What's going on, everybody? Welcome into the Pod at the Palace. I'm Curtis Wilkerson, joined as always by my right-hand man, the GOAT of Arkansas Razorbacks basketball coverage, Scottie Bordelon, here at the Natty State Sports Studios.
What an intro, bro.
That's right, man. I got to give you your flowers.
I said on Twitter yesterday, you're my left-handed right-hand man.
I like that.
I was pretty proud of myself for coming up with that, but it's all facts.
I love it. I love it. Feels good, man. Well, we got quite a bit to talk about. I mean, we're here. We're at the Natty State Sports Studios. Arkansas won a basketball game. We beat that to death, but now the question is, are they going to be able to build a little bit of momentum off of that? I mean, the vibes are strong right now with the Razorbacks. It's crazy what like one win can do. I thought Eric Musselman was in a great mood in his press conference today. We'll see if they can kind of carry it forward with some momentum on Saturday against South Carolina, who's coming in here to Fayetteville. It's a noon tip off on SEC Network at Bud Walton Arena. We hit you with a sneak peek look at the Gamecocks yesterday to kind of get you tuned up for that a little bit. But Scottie, I know you've been kind of diving deep on the old Gamecocks. You got a whole page full of notes there.
I don't know that everybody wants to hear me say all of this, but I think
I want to hear most of it, man. What do you got on South Carolina? What do we need to know?
If you think Texas A&M was a grinded out team that came into Bud Walton the other night, and by the numbers they are, but South Carolina wants to even bring it more to a halt. Slowest tempo in the league in SEC games. So Arkansas is going to contend with that a little bit, just kind of the opposite of really what they want to do. Eric's always, talking about how point guard, he wants his point guards to get the ball, across half court, maybe as fast as possible, within reason, obviously not out of control. But it's a South Carolina team that's had turnover issues in league play so far.
Can Arkansas take advantage of those?
Based on what we saw Tuesday, probably not. Arkansas forced Texas A&M into 2 turnovers the other night. Arkansas had 1 steal. And so just because South Carolina's got a actually not nice, a really big turnover percentage number doesn't necessarily mean anything, but they have had issues kind of handling the ball to this point. It's up, that number, 21.4% is the turnover percentage number in league games. That's last in the league. And it's up 5%. Relative to what their full season number is. So they're struggling maybe against some of these, athletes, coaches that are, more familiar with these guys. I think they're turning the ball over a little bit too much.
I mean, if they got off to such a hot start and now they're really seeing some of these numbers turn in SEC play, you wonder if they're paper Tigers or paper Gamecocks.
Paper Gamecocks. Yeah. Yeah, that's fair. Maybe that team, especially you lose at home to Georgia the other night.
Yeah.
Georgia's not as, I don't think Georgia's as bad as maybe I thought.
They might not be as good as Arkansas made them look, though.
Right, exactly. Another thing, South Carolina's a high volume 3-point attempt team. Almost 44% of their field goals have been threes. That's second in the league, but they're 12th in the SEC in 3-point field goal percentage. So similar, I think we're seeing a few parallels at least in terms of like tempo and 3-point field goal percentage with Texas A&M. The thing that I think gives Arkansas, gives Arkansas a really good chance this weekend is South Carolina is not as good on the glass, nearly as good on the glass as Texas A&M. That was the number 1 offensive rebounding team in the country by percentage on KenPom. South Carolina is not that. And so if Arkansas can just finish possessions, man, defensive rebound, I feel like it's but I do feel like it's going to be another defensive rebounding game. And the guys that are willing and ready to do that, I think they'll get a lot of run.
Well, it might help Arkansas's case that South Carolina is going to come in a little bit shorthanded. I mean, they're going to have their top couple guys, but Miles Stute, the transfer from Vanderbilt, we know him well. I think he got into a couple dust-ups last year with Kamani and Anthony Black and some different guys, but I always thought he was a really nice player. I mean, he's 6'7", pretty long wing. He can kind of play the 3 or 4, knocks down a ton of threes. He's also a guy who will get in there and mix it up on the glass. And
he has no problem mixing it up with anybody.
Yeah, mixing it up, period, anywhere with anyone. Exactly. Wasn't it Kamani and Miles where he just like really laid I wouldn't even call it a screen.
I feel like it had to be a personality like Kamani to want to get into it with a Stute type.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And so he hurt his shoulder apparently in this Georgia game and sounds like he's going to be out for a couple weeks, so that he's not expected to play against Arkansas. That's good news because he's a pretty good player. And I know they've got a better team and some more depth than maybe they had last year, but that's a key piece for them. A guy who starts and plays big minutes and can stretch the floor and rebound. So maybe that'll be something that helps Arkansas out. But again, they've got some dudes. I'll let you get into the Meechie Johnson love here in a sec, and also BJ Mack, another guy.
I know you really liked BJ Mack.
Love BJ Mack, man. I think I wish Arkansas would have got him, honestly.
Yeah.
But from a team standpoint, anything else that jumped out to you before we maybe get into some player specific stuff?
Defense is just kind of middle of the pack efficiency wise. They're not like blocks and steals, not really their thing. But I noticed on KenPom, you can look at the non-steal turnover percentage.
Yeah.
That's a pretty good number for them. So you're talking about like forcing guys to throw the ball out of bounds. Maybe a guy's trying to drive baseline and they slide their feet well enough to where, maybe he steps out of bounds or just kind of gets caught in the air with the ball. Shot clock violations, 5-second inbounding. There's a lot of non-steal turnovers if you really think about it. And South Carolina is pretty good at that. But I just think that I think that the opportunity is there for Arkansas to get on the offensive glass. I think South Carolina is I think they're 12th in league games only in defensive rebound percentage. So maybe it's one of those games where, you could potentially see Trevor Brazile reemerge like we saw him firsthand in the Bahamas doing. He was a monster on the glass in a few of those games. Can he maybe do that again?
He's going to really stand out in this game too, just from a height and length standpoint. I mean, Mack he's a big boy, but he's 6'7", 6'8", and he's 260 pounds. If they put Josh Gray, the Razorback killer, in there, he's a 7-footer, so I'm sure he'll play 30 minutes. I was kind of surprised
to look at his game log and see he hasn't really done much this year.
No, I mean, if he played the Razorbacks every night, then he would be a first team All-American. Yeah, it's crazy. For those that don't remember, Josh Gray just came out of nowhere.
He went nuts last
year.
A bit
role player, and at South Carolina when Arkansas was there, and narrowly escaped with the win. He had 20 points and 14 rebounds in that game. It was insane. But yeah, I agree with you on that one. I think this is a good opportunity for Brazile to bounce back a little bit and get more aggressive on the glass. And you mentioned Arkansas getting on the offensive boards more. It's always drove me nuts that you have teams that are so long and athletic, and they haven't historically been that great on the offensive glass. And I know they made it an emphasis early in the season in terms of charting, the amount of times guys were going and crashing the offensive boards, and they were really trying to, I think, amp that up. But I wonder if maybe they backed off of it a little bit because the transition defense has been so bad that they were thinking, man, maybe we just need to send some dudes back.
Sacrifice a little bit of offensive rebounding.
Right.
Because our shot selection is not always great. So we need to get back. So we need to have more guys back. That makes sense.
But then to your point, though, a team like South Carolina, I can't remember the exact number. I know they're sub 300 in adjusted tempo. Like they don't move very fast up the floor. So I don't think you have to worry.
339 nationally.
Yeah, so maybe it is an opportunity to get on the boards a little bit heavier, send an extra guy, and then hey, we should probably be able to get back and stop those guys from burning them in transition on the break. So, Meechie Johnson, the dude is an absolute bucket. I think he's an all-league guard, 17 points per game, can do a little bit of everything. He lit Arkansas up last year. What do you like about his game? Then who do you put? I mean, is that Devo's matchup?
I mean, I think it's got to be right. Yeah. The other thing, and maybe I'm jumping ahead, but like Cooper at the point guard spot, who maybe checks him, is that maybe a T-mark assignment?
I think
defensively, because he leads them in minutes. He's kind of like the unknown. Like I kind of realized today that Carolina's backcourt might be better than I thought. It's just good, not just the Meechie Johnson show, but the Cooper kid, 72 assists, 19 turnovers, leads them in minutes. So he's a guy that's a big part of what they do on offense. But
he might be the straw that stirs the drink, honestly. I mean, that assist to turnover is crazy.
Yeah, it's nice. So many more. So like more than twice as many assists as anybody else on the team. But Meechie Johnson, he's did Eric say today that he's a high free throw attempts player? Meechie Johnson.
Without knowing for sure, I would guess that he probably did say that.
Fouls drawn per 40 minutes over 5.
Wow.
He's shooting 36% from 3 this year on almost 100 attempts. So he's
letting it eat.
He's getting them up. He is going to take a lot of their shots, like 30.6% of their shots taken. That's, top 75 nationally. So he's getting shots up. What's interesting, I think, in conference play, 27 3-point attempts, 20 2-point attempts. And so he's very feel like he's perimeter oriented, but he can also, I mean, you don't get that fouls drawn per 40 number, and unless you're mixing it up, trying to get downhill, every so often too.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, it is a good backcourt. The front court, like you said, I really do like BJ Mack. I mean, Arkansas was in his top 5 when he was in the portal coming out of Wofford in the spring. And I don't know, I think they probably recruited him pretty hard early on, but I do think that tapered off at the end. He was scheduled for a visit, and I don't think they ever really expected it to happen. But he's my kind of guy, man. He's 6'7", 6'8", he's 260 pounds. He's a bull.
Yeah.
He's a below the rim kind of guy, though. And you think about an Arkansas team that leads the country in block shots, that might be somewhere where they can take advantage of him if they can, stop him from bodying him up and creating some space around the rim.
South Carolina does get its shot blocked a lot.
I believe it.
Yeah, 12.7% of their twos get sent back.
There you go. So that'll be a stat to monitor for Arkansas. And the other thing about Mack is he is a guy that can stretch the floor and shoot the three. And he's shooting it below 30%, but he's made, 20 some odd threes this season.
The attempts are healthy enough to where you have to respect
You have to respect him. And Arkansas, against anybody who can really pick and pop this year, they've struggled to defend that, different guys. So especially with that drop coverage, I think that makes it a little bit tougher. When that screener is able to just pop out, you got more ground to cover to get out there and close out. So they might have to make an adjustment there. We'll see what it looks like.
Do you run at him and make him put the ball on the floor, though?
I think I would. Like, run in here to the trees and let's see if Keon Minifield can block your shot, because Keon Minifield, believe it or not, shot blocker. We've learned that. I think he had 2 in the last game.
That's the only thing from the A&M game we didn't talk about was Keon Minifield had 2 blocks.
I absolutely love it. And both times it happened, it was like very clear that Minifield came in with the block, and we were both like, they gave that block to Minifield. We
still had to ask each other if it happened, though.
It was awesome, man. I think I'm almost more fascinated going into this with Arkansas again, just in terms of the rotation and what we're going to be looking at there. Really interesting comments, I thought, from Muss in the presser today, where he was asked about Khalif Battle, but his whole thing was, listen, the 11, 12-man rotation stuff, it's not going to work. We got to trim it down. That 7 to 8 mark is where they need to be. We all know that that's kind of his wheelhouse, but the people who comprise that 7 to 8 man rotation, it's subject to change, right? So I want to play a game, Scotty. Okay. I want to play buy or sell with all these guys in terms of their staying power in the rotation. And I think we can trim some of the fat right away, I think, by saying T-Mark, Devo Davis, Trevin Brazil. Well, that's an easy buy, right? Like all those guys, regardless of what happens.
I think T-Mark hitting a game winner helped him stay in.
Maybe so. Yeah, maybe his 35 piece on Texas A&M's got him in there. We know Devo's going to be in there unless he
gets another F2,
kicks a Gamecock in the
Gamecock.
If that happens, then maybe they got to make an adjustment. But if he's able, he's going to be out there, and then obviously Brazil. But it was interesting as I was just kind of writing down everybody's name. Like, I got to make sure I don't forget this guy. After those 3, I feel like there could be some debate on the rest of these guys. So let's go through the rest of the starting lineup from this last game. Chandler Lawson, are we buying or selling his staying power? And just to give a little bit of context, Muss was asked about him today, and he was kind of asked about that 5 spot for Arkansas and the point guard position, said that's where he's looking for consistency. And it has been kind of a revolving door, but he did admit that, at least, and I'm glad he finally said it, but Chandler Lawson has been the most consistent. Do you think that's going to reflect in his playing time consistently moving forward?
I think so. I think he does too many things that are valuable. Like the other night, he got an early bucket, which helped with the good start. Got on the defensive glass, had several rebounds really early, which we were a big fan of. And then, he blocked the shot, and he played 27 minutes, 4 turnovers, no assists. So that, the spreading, he can spread the wealth a little bit. I was honestly really impressed with his decision making the other night.
Yeah,
and obviously he's not going to be put in that position to be a middle of the floor free throw line playmaker every night. Him doing that probably gave some future opponents who are trying to scout Arkansas some pause on maybe sending a trap at Arkansas's primary ball handler, because he can pick you apart from right there. Made some good decisions. I just think he's too valuable. We've already seen what he can do with a Zach Edey, a Kyle Filipowski. he has so much value around the rim, and he's a big part of the reason why Arkansas is, one of, if not the best shot blocking teams in the country. And I'll say it again, like I've said it pretty much all season. You can use bowl type length, defensively,
He's
and
got that.
you can get beat. You can get beat by somebody, and you can use that length. And it's not like he's the biggest guy. He's light on his feet, fairly. You can make up ground that way. And he can step out and knock down a three, like Eric said. One of the main things I took away from what Eric said in that answer that you mentioned, he said he thinks Chandler Lawson could shoot more threes. I'm a fan of that. Like,
I'd love for Arkansas in general to shoot more threes, and if it's going to be Chandler Lawson on that, that catch and shoot corner three, I mean, let it eat, man.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like anytime that an opponent, or at least the player on the floor who is matched up with Chandler Lawson, sees him maybe stretched out to the 3-point line, he's like, I don't know about this. And Chandler Lawson's like, if you don't know about this, I'm going to take it. I think you should, maybe take a little bit more.
For sure.
I'm not sure how many he's taken. He's taken 10 to this point in the season.
Yeah. If he doubled that, I'd be fine. Yeah, absolutely. I think I'm with you. As I look at what this team needs, it's consistency. And so at the spots that have been most in flux, like, put your most consistent guy in there.
Yes.
And give him some leash and let him play through some mistakes. And that doesn't mean other guys aren't going to play, but I think it would benefit a guy like Chandler Lawson going into a game knowing, kind of regardless of what happens. I mean, you can't play a complete egg, but I'm going to get, my 15, 18 minutes per night. And if I'm cooking, then I'm going to have a night like I did against Texas A&M, which leads us to L. Ellis.
Yeah.
I think it goes without saying that I buy the L. Ellis stock. To me, not a perfect player. He wasn't perfect against Texas A&M the other night. He's 3 of 11 from the floor, but it's like Eric said, there's certain things that they need from him. They needed defensive rebounding from their guards. He gave them 6. They needed guys who were going to be able to take care of the basketball in crunch time. And I think he had 3 turnovers in the game, but the ball was in his hands a lot down the stretch of that game. And it was either him or Tremont Mark, and you felt pretty comfortable with both of those guys.
Yeah.
And he was clutch at the free throw line. And I didn't notice him in a negative light defensively. That doesn't make him a great defender, but he didn't strike me as a liability in that game, in those matchups. So, yeah, to me, when he's playing with confidence, he's an asset for the team. It doesn't mean he has to be an all SEC guard, but he's a guy that can help him. I like the idea of buying in on L. Ellis as your starting point guard. And with that being said, it doesn't mean to me that he plays Tremont Mark level minutes or even Devo level minutes, because I think you got a guy backing him up, that it could almost be a platoon situation, but consistency there. The one thing I don't want to see is start the game, come out at the first media timeout, and we don't see you again until the start of the second half, and you get a couple minutes and we don't see you again. Consistency is what they need. And when he's been on the floor for consistent minutes and he's able to play with some freedom, Arkansas has pretty much played its best basketball. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Where are you at with that?
I agree with that. I think it's a good thing long term. Like, you're trying to play long term. You're not thinking, obviously Arkansas at this point in the year is like very game by game, because they can't afford to, like, Arkansas right now can't look ahead to the road trip to Ole Miss next week or hosting Kentucky next week. It's all in the here and now. But I think if Arkansas wants to, maybe hit its, start hitting its stride at some point in the next few weeks, I think L. Ellis is going to be a part of that. And you're right. Like, I'm looking at his game log right now. He's played, over. So let's go. Here we go to the Duke game. 31 minutes. Played well.
There we go.
Against a big time opponent. Won that game. 31 minutes against A&M the other night. He played well. Arkansas won a game that they had to have. And then early in the season, Arkansas's rolling, and he's playing, a healthy number of minutes. I think it's good for him. Defensively, I think one of the reasons he hasn't been on the floor as much is just he at times he can just be lost defensively. That happened a couple times the other night. I had him giving up 2 buckets on 10 shots defended. One of the shots that he gave up, he just lost Wade Taylor.
Not a guy you want to lose.
How it's like, how do you do that?
Right.
Like, these are the reasons you're not on the floor. This is a guy you've got to stay attached to, and sometimes that happens for him. And I think I think it's just big for Arkansas to just identify its point guard and run with it. Doesn't necessarily mean that he's got to be the primary ball handler all the time, because I think in crunch time, at this point, we know it's going to be Tremont Mark that's got the ball. But I think L. Ellis is a nice guy to have, like maybe on the wing or stashed in a corner, where if he gets the ball kicked to him, he's got really good dribble drive ability.
He can make a play.
Yeah,
exactly.
Make a play.
I agree with that 100%. As far as I'm concerned, like Arkansas could roll out that starting 5 every game the rest of the year.
Cool.
And I'd be just fine with it. I'm cool with that. And so then it becomes, who fills in. Minifield is one who stands out to me. There are going to be some games that aren't great matchups for him. I think we both agree with that, just because of his size, or more so his strength even, against some of these bigger SEC guards. But like you mentioned in the past, he's a guy who can really just change the pace and give Arkansas a different look and a different dynamic. I love that coming off the bench. And L can play fast too, don't get me wrong, but it's Minifield, that speed is just different, man. And so if that's a platoon situation, for me, I feel good about it, and I feel comfortable buying Minifield as a guy who's got some staying power in the rotation. And some nights that might mean it ain't L's night, and it's a good matchup for Keon, and he's playing 30 minutes, and L's playing 10.
Yeah.
And it might be the inverse in other games, but I think for the most part, it could pretty much even out over the course of the rest of the season. Do you like Minifield as a guy who's a regular, or do you still have some pause there? I mean, what's he played, 5 or 6 games at this point? So the jury's still kind of out.
Yeah, I think the jury is still out for me, but I do think he's got value. We haven't seen like a ton of that value. Like, he was good at times in that Auburn game, but then again, you look at the box and he was 5 for 15 from the floor.
Yeah, he was letting it fly a little bit there.
But I'll go back to like his debut, when he made his debut against Lipscomb down in North Little Rock. We were there, and he gets into the game. I don't know that I'm probably trying to big brain this too much, or I'm thinking too much into this.
That's why we're here.
But you see guys like Arkansas likes to pass the ball around the perimeter. Who whips the ball around and makes the more crisp passes from the guard spot? It's probably Keon Minifield.
Yeah. And then he moves.
He is not. Yes, he's not a ball stopper, and he moves when he doesn't have it. I think there's some value in that too. And the other night he blocks. He's at a height disadvantage or a size disadvantage with whoever he was guarding.
Still a rim protector.
big time, big rim protector, Keon Minifield. But he's capable of doing stuff like that because he's bouncy, he's springy, like he's athletic as all hell. He can go block shots. I wouldn't count on it on a nightly basis, but he's capable of it. And maybe like he's athletic enough. Eric talks a lot about like the rear view mirror contest. He can come up with some blocks maybe from that.
Absolutely. He strikes me as the guard who is like, I wouldn't say best equipped, but has looked the best so far in terms of what they're trying to do with getting over those ball screens and doing that. He's slippery and quick enough to get over the top of that without getting popped and getting hung up.
Agree.
It didn't go lost on me that when he was in there at times, like A&M was picking on him.
Yes.
And they were going at him, and that led to the foul trouble there. So it's going to have to be something he works on.
Listen to this. So since he started before Tuesday night, he'd had 1 foul in the previous 4 games.
Oh, wow.
And so tell me that A&M wasn't like really trying to go.
We're going to go, and this dude comes in like we are going at him.
Yeah, I had him defending like 5 shots, and he picked up 4 fouls. So yeah, he was right in the middle of kind of what A&M wanted to do whenever he was on the floor.
Yeah, maybe we should have added. We're doing buy or sell here. Maybe we should have added hold. Because I like it now, but you're right. If it comes to a point where like what outweighs what, if the defense, and the lack of size becomes such a liability. That it outweighs the dynamic that he brings on the offensive end, then you got to make a move, and maybe you look at a guy like Blocker at that point.
2 hours later.
Whoa, Scotty, come on, man, dude, we got lights.
Finally,
this is wild. Woo. Well, for those who weren't following along on social media and are watching this on YouTube, it's a good thing we weren't going live when we recorded this podcast, and we were recording, but in the middle of it, we had a power outage in Fayetteville, and what was it, about 2 hours?
Something like that, yeah.
But we're back now. So we can finish this podcast because the show must go on.
Got to go on.
It's got to go on. The pot at the palace doesn't stop for electricity, although it is a vital component to what we do here. So I'm really glad it came back on before the estimated time of 10:30 at night, and I think it's about 8:30 now. So
yeah, that was nice. It came back on a little bit earlier than expected.
yeah, Scotty had to, and the elevators are down here too, and we're on the 6th floor, and so Scotty had to get a little bit of exercise in, walking up and down the stairs.
My exercise for the month is accounted for.
At any rate, appreciate everybody, and hopefully we cleared up any miscommunications here as to what was going on. But we had to take a long pause in this podcast, but we had just wrapped up talking about Keon Minifield as we were kind of going through a little bit of buy, sell, or hold with Arkansas's rotation. So a few other guys that we want to get into, and then we want to talk about what's kind of a loaded slate in the SEC this weekend. I think the next guy to talk about is Jeremiah Davenport. Kind of an interesting case, the curious case of Jeremiah Davenport, because he's a guy who has had his struggles defensively. Thought he was going to come in and be a big-time shooting threat for the Razorbacks. He's not even shooting 30% from three this season, but there's just something about him and the energy that he brings. I think it's kind of contagious. It's what Arkansas needs. But you ask Eric Musselman about him, and you just kind of hear the same thing, which is you guys looked at his plus-minus rating from these games. So where do we stand on Davenport?
Yeah, dude, those plus-minus numbers are, yeah, they're no joke. They're not pretty. But at the same time, if you look at his in SEC 3-point shooting numbers, he's only taken 14 attempts, but 35.7%. So he is giving you a little bit of pop there. Against Texas A&M the other night, I feel like he hit 2 threes, and they were, pretty big and timely, especially in that 30-10 start. And you mentioned like the energy. We've talked in the past about the 3 pillars of Eric's program are effort, energy, enthusiasm.
Yeah.
Jeremiah Davenport lacks none of that. And when we were in the Bahamas together, seemed like he was the only guy that was getting any rest there.
the only guy that
had a pulse
exactly
for a little while. But yeah,
yes.
the defensive side of the ball it can be a struggle for him. But I think he's another older guy, and I think he's from what we see, good body language, seems to be a good teammate. Even when he's not playing, he's up on the bench providing energy, and I think other guys follow that. It's contagious a little bit. For the simple reason of like effort and energy, enthusiasm, I think I'm in on him getting in the rotation. His minutes might fluctuate game to game, but like that feels like we're saying that about almost everybody.
True.
At this point.
That's
I think there's going to be nights where he's a bigger factor, and then there might be some nights where he just doesn't play. So maybe it's a hold, but I think a guy that embodies like the things that Eric wants his program to be, I think that finds a way.
I feel like the good thing about a guy like Jeremiah Davenport is he doesn't need a ton of playing time to make an impact. If he's bringing the traits that you kind of expected him to the team. It didn't take him long to score 8 points in a row the other night.
Yeah.
A guy that can come in there and spread the floor and knock down some threes and just give you, a burst of energy, even when he's not defensive rebounding, which has been a thing that Eric has talked about quite a bit, that they want Davenport to do a better job of. Boy, it sure seems like he's flying in there and giving it effort, maybe getting his hands on things. He'll dive for loose balls. I don't know. He gets in a defensive stance, even if he can't guard. All those things are valuable. So to me, I think you're right. There are going to be some games where maybe they really have to lean on him because of what he creates out there. But he can make an impact in 10 to 12 minutes per night, and it kind of frees up some space for some other guys. So I think there's a benefit to having him in there. But yeah, I'm with you. I don't think he's ever going to be a guy that you're really lean on for 35 minutes a game.
Yeah, for sure. And I think there's a little bit of sneaky athleticism there. Like if you recall the Lipscomb game, nobody else even tries to get back on defense after a turnover, but Jeremiah Davenport he tries to trail and kind of that chase down block. He gave the officials something to look at, which was impressive on its own.
Yeah.
And he's a guy that I've been surprised a couple times when he's pinned layups to the glass, because he's a bigger bodied 6'6", if that makes sense. So I don't expect to see a ton of athleticism, but he can get up a little bit, surprise you.
And for a team that Muss has even admitted that. I mean, he said it when we were in the Bahamas, like they're kind of lacking with that
wing length.
Yeah.
Is that what he said?
Yeah, wing length, exactly. They've always had the 6'6", 6'7" guys with long arms that were physically built to be able to handle some of those hybrid type guys that you see in the SEC.
Yeah.
He's got the best body for it, whether he can do it or not. So, like, they're going to have him involved in that. We talked about consistency in the point guard position, and Muss also mentioned that center spot. We both agree that Chandler Lawson is the most consistent, so maybe he should get the most consistent minutes. So I throw a double dip at you, like, where are we at with Jalen Graham and Mekhi Mitchell? Because one of those guys I think is going to be in, not both. Is it going to be a situation where it goes game to game, or are we going to finally move on from one of them?
Could be, man. I think that could come down to, is this a big defensive rebounding night?
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? Because it was Tuesday night. What were Jalen Graham's minutes looking like?
Not many.
And Kai was getting some of those minutes. And I think it's so weird. It is going to be very game to game. And the other night against A&M, when you had to have your 5 men creating plays, Kai and Chandler Lawson are, if you have to rank them in order, like, those are going to be 1 and 2, whichever way you want to rank them. And then Jalen Graham's going to be a third. That doesn't mean necessarily that Jalen Graham can't impact the game, because we saw it against Alabama last year. Alabama had a really good team last year until the tournament.
And they were huge.
Yeah, they're really big. And then Florida, obviously, last year when they didn't have Castleton, and they threw the big Jatobo boy out there, and Jalen Graham just made barbecue chicken out of him. But I think I think it'll be situational with JG. But I think, he has been playing some of his better ball of late, even though maybe his efficiency, like against Auburn, wasn't there. Thought he did a decent job on Janai Broome, especially early in the game when I was watching it more closely. What do you think? Like, because I agree with Eric that Chandler Lawson's been the more consistent of those 3 guys, but it's not like Kai hasn't been lighting it up, and Jalen Graham's been better.
Yeah, I'm a little bit torn. I think I'm on the same wavelength as you here. Here's the thing about Kai. Like, I think if Arkansas was getting last year's version of Mekhi, which wasn't a world beater, but I thought he was a solid, capable SEC center, middle of the pack kind of guy.
Yeah.
And if he's that, then I'm all for it. But it just hasn't quite been the same this year, especially. I mean, it's not like he's just gobbling up all the rebounds. He's better equipped to do it than Jalen Graham. But just some of the lapses defensively, it seems like there's been some effort things there. I mean, if he cleans that up, I'm all for Mekhi getting some minutes. Graham, it's interesting, but I agree. I think it's going to be a situation, which might lead us into the last bit of the conversation here, where there are going to be nights when Arkansas is going through the first half and they're shooting about 28% from the field, and they're at the under 8 timeout and they've got 12 points and they're trying to figure some things out. And you got to bring a guy in who can get you a bucket.
Yep.
And that's where Jalen Graham, I think, can really bring some value. I was hoping this would be a year where he would really emerge. They hyped him up throughout the course of the offseason.
Sure
it was like, well, maybe this is his time to shine. He got to start in there at some point. And I agree. Like, I think he's done fairly well in his minutes. I think he's improved as a defender. His effort's definitely better.
Yeah.
But I just don't know that he's going to be the guy. And so I thought, okay, maybe it'll be a situation where he's got a pretty carved out, consistent, larger role. I don't know if that's going to be the case either. I think maybe he just is what he is.
Yeah.
And it's going to be situational between those two. But my hope is that it becomes Chandler Lawson is the guy that you know what you're going to get out of him every night.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's either Graham's night or Mekhi's night, because the rotation between the 3, that's not consistency. And that's what this team is looking for. So maybe it's a nightly thing where you just pick your 2 and roll with it. I don't know. Foul trouble is going to play into it also.
Yeah.
But we'll kind of see.
You can't predict foul trouble
at all. Who knows, man?
You know?
Yeah.
But like you mentioned, like if Arkansas was just getting last year's version of Kai, I think they'd be in a really good spot.
Absolutely.
Eric would play him more this year if he was getting at least what he got last year. Last year he played, according to KenPom, roughly half of the team's available minutes. This year it's under 35%, right under 35% of the available minutes. So he's just been a little bit different this year than last.
Yeah, and he's not protecting the rim like he was. It's a weird deal. I wonder if maybe he's still feeling some of the effects of that foot injury that he had over the
Could be.
summer.
Yeah,
I don't know.
even think about that anymore. Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, I mean, he was out the whole summer. I don't think he had surgery unless they hit it well, but I know he was in a boot for a long time and he missed most of the offseason conditioning. Maybe that's still a thing. I don't know. But the last guy I think that we got to discuss here, obviously, and we've talked about it ad nauseum, is Khalif Battle. Muss was asked about him again. That's kind of what spurred his entire conversation about the rotation as a whole. But it just feels like to me, if Arkansas is going to get back on track, fully on track, and be towards an NCAA tournament berth, I just don't know how they're going to be able to do that without Khalif Battle playing a role in this. And maybe I'm wrong, and maybe other guys are going to step up. Maybe L. Ellis being back in there and providing a little bit more scoring can take care of some of that. But with Battle, when he's locked in, man, he's just so dynamic, and he brings you a Robin to the Batman of Tremont Mark in terms of creation. And they need him to space the floor with his ability to catch and shoot and knock down 3-pointers. They got some guys who can make shots, but the way he does it, man, it's just different. I don't know.
Do you have any ideas on like what the disconnect might be, or like why he it seems like he's maybe fallen, I don't know if fallen out of favor is the right word, but something has gone on or happened, or there's been some kind of discovery, I guess.
Yeah. My semi-educated guess is he probably wasn't getting the minutes that he wanted to get because of some defensive deficiencies there. And then I think maybe we're to the point we are now because I'm not sure how well he's handled it. And even Muss was talking about that today with L, like with his situation when he lost some minutes and he was losing his time, maybe on a day-to-day basis, he didn't handle that as well as he needed to. And that's why we're just seeing him start to emerge again. Maybe that exact same thing is happening later in the season with a guy like Khalif Battle, who was so good for this team for so long, and kind of emerged as maybe not the alpha, but an alpha.
Yeah. He's got that personality.
Yeah. And then you just see it start to deteriorate. And I know he's a guy that's got a lot of swagger, and we say he doesn't lack for confidence, but I'm sure that impacts him. And I wonder if he's responded the right way in terms of body language and doing the things that he needs to do. And that doesn't make him a bad guy or anything like that. Right. But my guess is that's what Muss is looking for before he gives him another shot.
Khalif Battle, take a page out of L. Ellis's book and just jump in with the ones one day, man. Just do it. Just go do it.
Just get in there.
It seems like Eric respects that. Just kind of a guy, maybe trying to seize control of the situation that he's in. And just, I mean, I would imagine, if Khalif's engaged, dude, especially because we were talking early in the season, it looked like he'd sit down and guard somebody.
Right.
And
when he wants to.
When he wants to, he can do that. If maybe that want has waned a little bit, or maybe it did wane. I think just it's easy for me to say from this seat, but initiative and just, showing the coaching staff 100% that like, hey, I'm here, available, want to do what helps the team win, because he can help the team win.
Absolutely. Sure. And I wonder if his energy, his demeanor, and like his defensive effort correlates with what he's getting cooking on the offensive end.
Yeah.
I'd have to go back and look to really get a feel for that. But yeah, I think there's something to that. But what I will say is obviously, maybe he's in the doghouse a little bit or on the outside looking in right now. But I do think, we haven't seen the end of Khalif Battle. Like he's going to get a shot again. It's just going to be up to him whether or not he takes advantage of it. I just can't imagine a world where the Khalif Battle experience is over at Arkansas. He's too talented.
So talented.
I think we'll see something
when I did a commitment analysis on Khalif back in the spring, I talked to a guy that covered Khalif at Temple, and he said, this kid's going to have no trouble scoring in the SEC. We haven't really seen it yet, so that's still, TBD. But a guy that's as gifted and has got as deep of a bag as he's got, like he can score in so many different ways. I think if you get back to who you can be defensively, I think he'll get back on the floor again.
He seems like a guy that would be able to get back in the good graces of Muss, because he's not too far removed from like hitting a heat check 3, doing the shimmy, and slapping him on the ass.
And he's so back. He's so back. He does that one time.
I mean, come on, like we need that one time. And is there anybody else that we really need to talk about in terms of like being in this rotation consistently. I mean, we've seen Blocker get his times. We've seen Pinion, step up in the Florida game. I don't know that I'm really buying in on them.
I think those are maybe more spot minutes.
I think so too.
Yeah.
I think so too. Yeah. So I think we kind of narrowed it down to the main guys there. It's a pretty good weekend for SEC basketball, man.
It is.
Why don't we run through these games real quick and then get out of here? I'm gonna throw some games at you. I'm gonna throw some lines at you. KenPom lines right now, and those are usually within a point or two of what you see when the Vegas lines come out.
Okay.
But it is a little bit early to have the officials out there. But let's go through these real quick and kind of see where we're at with these picks, and maybe we'll keep track of them and see how dumb we are.
Let's do it.
Okay. The first one here might be the game of the weekend, man. Bama at number 6 Tennessee, so a road game for Alabama. Who doesn't have the record that people expect them to have, but obviously they're extremely dynamic and very capable on the offensive end.
Yeah, I was about to say that is one uber gifted offensive team.
It might be the number 1 offense in the country against who I looked at earlier is the number 2, I believe, defense in the country in terms of efficiency at KenPom. It's Tennessee -4 at KenPom, so a 4-point favorite at home. Where are you leaning on this one?
It's hard for me to imagine Tennessee losing to an unranked team, even though it is a super talented offensive team. I just can't see Tennessee, losing on their home floor. Would you say it was what now?
-4.
-4. I might take Tennessee.
I think so too, man. They're so hard to beat at Thompson Bowling. I mean, it's ridiculous. We talk about how good of a home court advantage Bud Walton Arena can be and some of the other places in the league. Like Thompson Bowling is as good as any.
Yeah.
And I agree. I think, and the other thing too is Tennessee can actually score it a little bit this year.
They can.
Dalton Connect is a bucket.
He's a problem.
I don't know what you're going to do with him. Like him and Grant Nelson are going to be matched up with each other or what that's going to look like, but could be a lot of fun. But I'm with you, man. I think I like Tennessee to cover this one at home. Vandy, who's struggling, which is not necessarily a surprise, at Mississippi State, which, Mississippi State's an interesting team because I actually thought they did pretty well in their non-conference, but now they're kind of reintegrating Tolu Smith into the equation, who is just an absolute monster. He's a terror in the paint against anybody. I don't know if Vandy has an answer for that or if anybody does, really. That's at Mississippi State, so it'll be in the hump. KenPom has Mississippi State as a 16-point favorite in this game. That's a ton. That's
a lot of points,
man.
That is a lot of points. I'm tempted to take Vandy in the points there. That's a lot. Like Auburn just went to Vandy and beat Vandy by 15. It seems like Auburn beats everybody by 15. And that's just a lot of points, even on the road. I think I'd take Vandy plus the points there.
Yeah, I'm going to agree on this one too, and hopefully we have some picks that go the opposite way. But yeah, I mean, 16, that's ridiculous, especially with Mississippi State, which they're another team that's better offensively maybe than they have been in the past, but still, Chris Jans, like that's a defensive-minded team. They grind out possessions. Like that's a lot of points for them. So I think Mississippi State wins, Vandy covers. The next one, Texas A&M is a 2-point road favorite at LSU, surprisingly good in SEC play, LSU.
Yeah.
What do you make of this one?
I don't know. But I do know that on Wednesday night, I had Ole Miss plus 6.5 at LSU, and LSU covered the 6.5. I think it might come down. Do we know what Henry Coleman's status is, or if Henry Coleman plays, I like A&M. If he doesn't, I'll take LSU at home. I don't know what Matt McMahon's got going down there now, but he's got a kid in the front court that looks a little bit like great value Drew Timme.
He does, yeah. That's got to be the Will Baker kid. I think he started his career at Texas, then he was at Nevada, and really I thought he kind of found himself there. And then now, he's playing well for those guys. And I think they've got Cohen is his last name, but he was a really hot transfer, mid-major guy who transferred up. And I think when they did the what was it? The temporary restraining order, I think it was, with the NCAA for the second time transfer, so I'll get immediately eligible. That dude started playing. It feels like that's where they kind of flipped the switch. Let's say if you're going with LSU at home, I'll go Texas A&M. Fine. Right. Like, whatever. I don't know. Like Buzz Williams and then figure it out.
LSU going to have to guard somebody. And I don't imagine Tyrese Radford, you're going to hold him down.
Yeah, is he going to have that bad of a game a second time? And then Wade Taylor is just, he's just a bucket. And until I see somebody shut him down, I'm just not going to believe it.
I'll say this, though, too. Jordan Wright, formerly at Vanderbilt, too, is at LSU. And that kid had a heck of a game against Ole Miss. He had 27 and 7, 5 assists, 7 steals. That kid can hoop.
You know, we talk about wing length and everything for Arkansas. My sources told me at the time that Arkansas was a heavy player for Wright.
I like him.
Out of the portal. But LSU, it's back home. He's a Louisiana guy. And when that opportunity come up, he couldn't pass it. But at LSU, swung and missed on that or just not noticed he went into the portal, Arkansas would have had a really good chance of getting that dude. And he'd have been fun to have on the team. Loved him at Vanderbilt and love him now. I'm glad you brought him up. Let's see. We got Georgia on the road at number 8, Kentucky. Kentucky's a 10-point favorite over Georgia in Rupp. I know you like this game for different reasons, though.
I do. I like the over in this one.
Yeah, buddy.
And I don't think I said it on the gambling show. The over in Kentucky's last 14 games has hit 13 times.
Really?
And so Kentucky has got really good offense. They're kind of mid defensively in league play. And Georgia can really shoot the three, and they're 3-0 on the road this year. So they're not going to be intimidated going to Rupp. I think Kentucky wins that game, but my best bet is on the over.
I like that. I like that a lot. Yeah, I think Kentucky wins that game too. Georgia better, but I think I said earlier, I don't think they're as good as Arkansas made them look. I will take Kentucky to win that game and cover at home. And I wouldn't be surprised if it's a high-scoring affair. A couple more here. Florida is a 3-point road favorite at Missouri, who's under 500 on the year. Dennis Gates really had him rolling in year one, but kind of taking a step back here. We obviously just saw what the Florida Gators are capable of. But what do you think they're capable of doing to the Tigers on the road as a 3-point favorite?
I think they can make Missouri's really charming fans upset. Again, I think Florida goes in there and wins outright. They might cover 3.
Yeah. I wish I could disagree with you on this, but I just can't. I mean,
we were talking earlier today. There's like 2 teams in the league that are sub 500 right now. It's Vandy, right, and Missouri. I think Florida has some talent.
They're pretty good. I love their coach too.
Yeah.
So does Muss.
I don't like Missouri. Like can be a good hostile environment on the right night. I don't think Florida is going to bring out the best in that crowd, even though it is a 7:00 game on a Saturday.
True.
But I think Florida goes in there and gets a win.
I think they do too. Missouri's an interesting team. Like they really struggled without having any forwards, like any semblance of a front court last year. And they're starting Noah Carter, who's a kind of a 6'6" wing at center this season. And I haven't looked, but I'm sure that's a factor for him on the glass and everything. Number 22 for now, Ole Miss, on the road at number 13, Auburn. Auburn, in a top 25 matchup for the moment, is a 14-point home favorite, according to KenPom. So do you think Auburn can cover that in the jungle or not? That's a lot of points.
What I was going to say, that I think they win by double digits, but apparently
everyone
that's the word
Good
on
call.
The streets for this game. But if you look at Auburn's schedule, dude, they beat everybody by at least 15. It seems like. I think they could probably do that. I mean, I think if they've got to slow Alan Flanagan. Yeah. And Chris Beard's team's kind of hurt coming off a game they probably felt like they should have competed better in at LSU. But Auburn's not exactly the easiest place to go, right the ship. They might be licking their wounds a little. Yeah.
I think, just to be different, I'll say, Ole Miss can cover that 14, but I don't think this is going to be a competitive game.
Yeah,
I imagine Auburn's going to get control early. They're going to cruise, win by double digits. Fine. I'll say they win it by 13 instead of 14. But yeah, I'm with you with the sentiment that Auburn's way better than I expect them to be, at least. And Ole Miss, I don't know if I'm
just
buying
seem
it.
so connected.
They really
Auburn
do.
does. That Auburn team is it's so connected, and they've just got energy guys everywhere.
Yeah.
It's the Baker Mazzara kid, Katie Johnson, Janai Broom can get a little feisty, obviously. I think that group of guys feeds off their home crowd, maybe as well as any team, because everybody's just like right there on top of the court. It's easy to feed off of that.
Yeah.
Wouldn't be surprised if Katie Johnson has a day, but yeah, I think Auburn wins that one pretty easily.
The shortest shorts and the shortest neck in college basketball,
Facts.
Katie Johnson. The final one here, obviously, we got South Carolina at Arkansas. It's a noon tip at Bud Walton Arena. Ken Palm right now, it has Arkansas as a 2-point favorite in this game. I think it's going to wind up being a little bit higher than that when the line's released, maybe 3.5 or 4. But we'll stick with the 2 here. Where are you at with this one? You know, South Carolina was rolling. They're coming off a tough home loss. Arkansas was not rolling, but they're coming off a much needed home win.
Yeah, I like Arkansas in this game, and I think it's probably anywhere 6 to 10 points. I mean, Eric is really good, I think, about when his team experiences some success, getting them to come down from that high almost immediately. Like the next day, as soon as you step in the building, it's over with.
Yeah,
you flush that, and this team literally cannot afford to still be thinking about Tuesday night, today, tomorrow, Saturday. They just can't. They have to move on. I like Arkansas. I think they'll have a plan for Michi Johnson, but we mentioned it earlier with the Cooper kid. He might be the head of the snake, like you mentioned. I think those are 2 big keys, and then how Arkansas's bigs get on the glass, and the guards obviously have to help out.
Yeah, for sure. I'm with you, and I also think it helps. I think it's significant if Miles Stute doesn't play in this game for South Carolina. And
I mean, I had one thing written down on my notebook about Miles Stute: 38.8% 3-point field goal percentage on 80 attempts, and he's like their emotional swing guy.
Exactly. Yeah, and so if you're missing that, that's a tough one, and it's tough to come in and win at Bud Walton Arena on the road on a Saturday after they got a win, and so maybe this crowd will be a little bit more re-energized.
The roads up here are clear.
Yes, you have recently found that out. For the first time in a week, you can drive in Fayetteville.
Yeah.
Breaking news.
I was driving 45 on the way here, and I felt like Dale Earnhardt. Like felt like I was literally flying. I don't see any reason why the crowd Saturday shouldn't be really good and play a big impact in this game, because the fans follow this team too. Like they get it. They get the significance of this game. Like if they don't get it, then basically Tuesday's a complete waste. You know, so they bring it, team brings it, potential for a pretty fun Saturday.
Yeah, I think so too. I think this is where we start to see some momentum built with this team going into what is just it's going to be a huge week next week for Arkansas, assuming they get it done, knock on wood, whatever. But they've got an opportunity with 2 quad 1 games next week on the road at Ole Miss, which I think is very doable. Won't be easy, but very doable. And if they're able to get past that one and set up that showdown with some momentum against Kentucky,
come on now,
then we're really rolling. And that's what we need at Natty State Sports. That's the kind of stuff that we're looking for. Yeah. So I'm excited about it. Scotty, we're kind of burning the midnight oil here again. I appreciate you for sticking it out. You know, sometimes the power goes out and you just got to kind of figure things out. And that's kind of what we've done tonight. We're making a habit
out of pods after dark, pod at the Palace after dark. It seems like that's the trend.
That is the trend. Yeah, we might be just do a permanent name change here pretty quick into our tenure together. But has been a lot of fun. Make sure you guys are at Bud Walton Arena Saturday at noon. If you can't be there, then tune in on SEC Network. Here's the deal though: if you're not there, you're going to miss out on the Eric Musselman bobblehead, which we will confiscate at least one of those to have them in the office here.
One of those.
We got to get an Eric Musselman bobblehead. It's top priority for this game.
He doesn't like it, doesn't seem like, but we'll gladly put it somewhere.
Exactly. He doesn't like it, but we love it already. I can't wait. All right, we're going to get out of here. Appreciate everybody for tuning in and checking it out. This has been Curtis Wilkerson with Scottie Bordelon over at Natty State Sports. It's been the pod at the Palace, and we will catch you guys next time.